Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our final NAC at Home program of 2020. My name is Mitch Case, and I'm with the National Arts Club. For those of you who are not familiar with the National Arts Club, we're a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City with a mission to stimulate, foster, and promote public interest in the arts. Annually, the club offers more than 100 free programs, including exhibitions, theatrical and musical performances, lectures and readings, and much more. For more information about the National Arts Club, you can visit us at nationalartsclub.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. If you're interested in becoming a member of the National Arts Club or would like information, you can email admissions@thenationalartsclub.org. This afternoon, we're joined by violinist Karla Donehew-Perez and violist Paul Laraia, both members of the Grammy Award-winning Catalyst Quartet, for pre-recorded performance of works by classical composers. The full program will be shared in the chat box. Please stick around after the performance for a brief Q&A with Paul and Karla. Today's performance is presented in partnership with the Sphinx Organization as part of a series of classical concerts featuring outstanding young Black and Latino musicians. Now, please enjoy the music of Karla Donehew-Perez and Paul Laraia. Thank you to Paul and Karla for that performance. If you would like to stick around for a brief Q&A, we'll get started in just a minute. I also want to mention that I'll be sharing a link in the chat box that you can make a donation to support today's performance. So well done, Paul and Karla. Thank you for that wonderful performance.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So I wanted to start with a question. Can you tell us where the performance was recorded?
Sure. It's we recorded it in Brooklyn a few days ago at the St. Boniface Church.
It was a beautiful venue. Let me just get this link real quick. And then another question. How did you select the program that you played?
That's a great question. We've been playing all sorts of duet repertoire for a while. As some of you may or may not know, Paul and I are married. We've been married for about 3 years and together about 6 years, as well as playing in the Catalyst Quartet for a very, very long time. And, you know, we've built up a repertoire of duo pieces for violin and viola. And those are the ones that we selected are some of the most played. You know, they're kind of become part of our core repertoire, you could say. I mean, you know, we're still digging for some more.
There's a really nice duo by Villalobos that we're gonna dig into soon.
Yeah.
And in terms of the solo Bach, I don't know if most people are familiar with the fact that violas don't have solo Bach for ourselves. So we either play the violin partitas and sonatas or the cello suites. So that was a cello suite, and that was one that I haven't played since basically I was in high school, since I was a kid. And I teach it every summer at the Sphinx Performance Academy. I've been teaching it almost every summer straight. And so I decided that I wanted to give it a sort of adult dig. I wanted to dig into it more musically so that I had a little bit a deeper well to to dig from when I was teaching the piece. So, I mean, it's a really gorgeous, I mean, Bach is incredible. You know.
Yeah, it was a beautiful set list. And how did each of you begin playing your respective instruments?
I guess I'll go first. So I actually started in my elementary school program. Initially, I wanted to play drums, but you know, every kid in public school wants to play drums. So there was actually like a little lottery for the drums, and I didn't get selected to do the drums. My dad actually was a drummer in high school. So like we actually had a drum set sitting around in the basement for a while. But anyway, I didn't get to play the drums. So then the next thing I wanted to play, because strings starts before band instruments, I wanted to play the cello. My mom said, no way, that's gonna be too big to take on the bus, and like kids are mean, kids are gonna like kick it, they're gonna break it. So I eventually settled on the viola, which I like to think of as like a compromise. I like to think of it as like the little hand cello. It's kind of because, you know, it's lower than the violin, but it's not quite that massive thing that was gonna terrorize, that was gonna be hard, difficult to lug around throughout life. So I settled on the viola, and I continued through elementary school until in middle school, I decided to start taking private lessons because there were some kids in my school that kind of were going that route, and I found out about it. And I was fortunate enough to have scholarships to like attend Settlement Music School in high school and Temple Music Prep and study with members of the Philadelphia Orchestra. So that's kind of how I started on my professional track from there.
My story is a little bit different. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and so my parents were musicians. And when we lived in Puerto Rico, my dad was in the symphony orchestra there, and my mom taught at the conservatory. My dad's a violinist, my mom's a flutist, and they say I chose the violin, but do you believe them? I'm not so sure. So I started when I was 3. I started with the Suzuki program. My violin teacher was actually my dad's stand partner for a while. So that's how, you know, how they went that way. And when we left Puerto Rico, we moved to California. I was 12 years old, and I was lucky enough to join this really wonderful music school that's produced a lot of excellent chamber musicians, actually, called the Crowden School. And that kind of sparked my love for string quartet. That's where I really first just was like, I want to do this. So I've always been a string quartet nerd. That's what I've always wanted to do. So I feel very fortunate to get to actually do that professionally.
We are all glad that you selected the instruments that you did. And oddly enough, we've had other recent Sphinx performers that I've heard the similar stories about the drums not working out and the cello being too big. So not the only one with that experience, I guess. Outside of the songs you performed today, who are some of your other favorite composers?
That's a really hard question. There's so many. I will say that I love Schubert. Like, I think Schubert is incredible. I don't know if I love performing Schubert because I find Schubert's music to be so difficult. So, so there's that kind of favorite. Like, what do I love to listen to? There are too many to mention. I love everything. I love Mozart. I also find Mozart to be very difficult. I don't know. I love Ponce. I think that piece is wonderful, and everybody should play it.
I'll always be quick to say that I love Bartók, because I love Bartók, and as soon as I found out about Bartók in high school, it sort of just like opened my brain for like just the possibilities of that, you know, the 12 notes of the keyboard, like, or of Western music can do. It's just incredible stuff.
Sure.
So I love it.
All right, and we've got some questions here from the audience. This is a question for Paul. How did you decide what ornamentations to add to the Bach pieces?
Well, so I've been dabbling a little bit in the Johann Quant's book on playing flute, and it has some you know, Johann Quant's was like a contemporary, more or less, of Bach, and in that time, and he wrote this big treatise, which was very you know, you can't necessarily take it word for word, but at least it gives you a little bit of insight into what these guys were thinking in terms of the styles and the purpose behind the notes that they were writing. And so I mean, not that I would claim that I have any kind of authenticity to my ornamentation, but I will say, I think the basics are: do not disturb the melodic contour of what Bach already wrote. Definitely don't disturb whatever character that you're going for. Like imagine if there were no ornaments, that character needs to only be enhanced by the ornaments, and it can't be sort of, you can't make a new character out of new notes, so to speak, and only enhance what's already there. So that was the philosophy that I decided to go on. And then just with my little tiny bit of knowledge of like what would be stylistic from treatises and from listening to other great period performers like Rachel Podster. She actually has a recording of the cello suites on violin, which I really love right now listening to.
I see a request in here to please play some Bartok in the next performance. So we have some other fans out there. And a few questions about, can you tell us about the instruments you played today, who made them, and any history behind them?
Sure. My violin, it was made in 2013 by Stefan Peter Greiner. And for those of you that don't know about Greiner's instruments, they're really, really wonderful. And he was one of the first, I don't want to say one of the first, but probably the most famous maker to get big time soloist people to stop playing on their strats and actually start traveling and playing on this kind of instrument. And I was really lucky to actually get my hands on a Greiner. And as soon as I had it, I was like, I have to have this instrument. So I did lots of work to be able to purchase that instrument for myself. I won a grant that paid for half of it, and then I found my way to owning it. So I feel very fortunate to be able to own that instrument. People who play on Greiners, for example, are Christian Tetzlaff, Kinkash Kashian. I mean, there's a lot more people, but those are probably the most famous that we know of.
And my viola is made by the Japanese-American maker Hiroshi Iizuka. And as you can see, if people are familiar with the regular shape, it's a little bit slightly different type of shape than your traditional upper string instrument would be. Now, this has been informed by the viola de amore, an ancient, more ancient instrument like Baroque and beforehands, which had had like 6 strings and then had like sympathetic strings that rang with it. So it's designed by that, it's influenced by that aesthetic. But practically speaking, what it allows for is allows a more ergonomic traveling up the fingerboard for sort of a more comfortable approach to position changing. And then the missing volume that would normally be in these upper bouts here is replaced by making this part a little bit wider than in the traditional shape. And the other thing that you'll note about a lot of Iizukas is that this part right here is a little bit more narrow than maybe on, especially like I used to play at a lot of Gaspar de Salo models. And this is definitely a lot more narrow, which I think creates a more focused projecting type of sound. So I love my Iizuka. He's a really famous maker, especially in the world of violas. And you'll find his instruments all over the world. And you'll also, he's so famous at this shape, you'll actually see people making this shape, but he was the first one to invent this shape. So they make Iizuka style copies actually, which is, I think, really cool.
What year is your viola again?
It happens to be 2009. But I mean, he's been famous since the 80s.
Great, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and I see a question here. Is there an advantage to playing a more ergonomic shaped instrument? I think you answered that a bit, but I guess you do see some benefits there.
Yeah, I mean, and the main reason is whenever you can play with less tension, you have more freedom. And if you're not working around the instrument, then the possibilities are much more.
Great. So my final question for you all, and I'm sure you've been asked this, but we all know the performing arts have really been hard hit during the pandemic. And how have you all been coping? Have you had chances to perform? What's life been like the last few months?
I mean, I think for all of us, it was just such a shock at first to just have all of your work canceled and just all at once, you know? We've been more fortunate than I think a lot of people. We've actually remained relatively active with our performing and our work with the Catalyst Quartet. And I think that's mainly due to the fact that we're a small ensemble. So we are very mobile and we can kind of navigate certain things a little bit easier than much bigger groups. And we've had a lot of sort of like these kinds of programs, like online, pre-recorded but live streamed online programs. I mean, the reality is that it is not what it was before, and that's been obviously it's been really, really hard. But I'm forever an optimist, and I try to find the good things in these moments. And we are trying to take advantage of this moment and do some things that maybe we normally wouldn't do. We have a huge recording project that we've been working on for 2.5 years now, that we are entering the second phase of. It's a multi-volume, multi-album anthology of all of the string quartet applicable repertoire by historically important Black composers. And so we're releasing one album soon, and then we're starting recording the second volume the same month. And so we're sort of like, everything is not what we had planned, but we're trying to move forward with a positive spirit. And we've had there are a lot of presenters and organizations that have been really generous to us. And so we're very thankful for those people who are fighting that fight and keeping the music alive.
Well, it's nice to at least hear that you've been able to keep somewhat busy and are still able to find outlets to perform. Yeah. And we'll have to have both of you as well as the quartet to the club when it's safe to do so.
We would love that.
And other than that, I want to thank both Paul and Karla and the Sphinx Organization for today's performance. As I mentioned, this is our last performance or program of 2020, but we have over a dozen programs coming up in January. So please check out nationalartsclub.org for more. Again, thank you, Paul and Karla, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody who tuned in.